So what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Well, I should say, I'm welcome back. It's been a while. I know. So wherever you guys are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're good and fine and amazing and all that stuff. Have I been live here and there? I've been on, I've been jumping on other people's lives and stuff like that. But it's good to be a part of the Justice League. But you still need to, have your own solo. So here we are, man. So today we are, today we are talking about supernatural. Today we're talking about supernatural is real. You know. So yeah. So today we're talking about supernatural is real, and we're talking about like all the spiritual stuff, spiritual awakening, and all of that good stuff, and for me, for me, like I've experienced so much, and a lot of people might say, oh man, all of those things that you have experienced, all of those things that you have, all of the things that you've experienced and seen, in the natural and in the supernatural. Like, how do you stay so calm? I don't really, honestly, I don't know. This is just for me, it's just a part of who I am. I know like a lot of other people, don't really like talking about that kind of stuff. When you're talking about angels, ancestors, life, death, heaven, all of the stuff that kind of goes with that, and all of the stuff that like in between that. Even the Bible, talks about the Holy Ghost, talks about how Jesus gave up the ghost. He said, Jesus said, "It is finished," and he spirit left his body and transcended. And of course, 3 days later, he rose again. So, but yeah, man. So like having this, having this gift, and having these divine strength. Because one thing that's one thing for me that's not talked about enough in, let's say, the in church period. They will call it the fruits of the, they will call it the, hey, how are you? So church, they will call it the fruits of the spirit. But well, we have gifts. We do. Um we have discernment. We have our intuition. Some people call it the instinct. However you want to feel. Some people say, oh, it's the Holy Spirit. However you want to look at it, whatever you want to call it. We all have some kind of like knowing. Some people, a lot of people choose to, and don't forget to subscribe, folks, and give me a thumbs up. Some people have a tendency to like not pay attention to it, or just kind of dismiss it, or because a lot of people want to just live their own lives and just do their own thing. People don't want to be told what to do and all of that stuff like that. But we know this life comes with rules and all of that stuff. And I was I a little in the beginning when I was having this like spiritual awakening and all of that good stuff. Was I jumpy and like not understanding what was going on? Of course, of course. Like anybody else out there, like who like people would say within their right or righteous mind would want to see um things in the spirit or in the supernatural and have like um thank you. Who would have who would want to like who would want to go through all that stuff? Because a lot of people that go through that stuff, so, a lot of people end up in like mental institutions and their lives, or their lives end up being like really, really, really messed up. Seriously, seriously messed up. Because people who don't understand what you're going through are like, oh, okay, well, they're going batshit crazy. Let's institutionalize them, so they could be hopped up on medication and drugs and stuff, and so their lives will never be the same. And that's the messed up part. But just
To
to
say
say
that,
that, just to say that, yes, the supernatural is real, and people. I don't know. I would be remiss to think that people think it's cool to go through the spiritual awakening. It is not, man. It is. It is a lot of ups and downs. It is being broke. It is being broken. Don't get me wrong. You get to experience a lot of cool stuff. You get to feel a lot of cool stuff. You know, times that I've been to the cemeteries and all of that stuff like that. Times where I've seen, like, I guess you could say, spirit
move
around
around.
and and all of that good stuff, and like how I would feel them, how I could sense them, and I just feel certain things in my mind, and you tell people about their lives, and you can feel their emotions, and
It's cool when you
when you get you hear stories about remote viewing, and all of these things like that. Like you really do. You hear
hear,
some,
some
you hear like some very, um, you hear some very interesting and intriguing stories out here from people, and the things that they've done. Portals opening up, and people messing around with Ouija boards and mirrors, and
the
esoteric. I'm trying to think of that man's name.
oh,
Aleister Crowley dude, and all of this. It's all of the people who
go to the
go to the
crossroads,
crossroads and they beat it.
and um,
I have some theories about that. Because
if you look at some of these
billionaires, I'm just saying, it's like overnight these people just become rich, and they're like, oh, I came from nothing, and my family didn't have anything. And you blink their eyes, you blink your eyes, and all of a sudden these people have like more money than some countries. I'm just saying, you know what I mean. But anyway, so yeah, just to let y'all know, that the supernat, it's and the veil is so thin now. It's almost like for every Halloween, the veil becomes very thin. From like our world to to theirs and all of that good stuff like that. But it's like the veil is very thin. There's so much happening out here. This is
was a solar eclipse just happened, I think.
like a new moon or a full moon.
So it's like all of the
It's like all of these cycles. It's like all of these cycles are happening and rehappening, and it's almost like a tale.
it's almost like a
Tale
tale.
all the time. But
We keep reliving it, and we keep reliving it, we keep retelling it, and
you know, we
we go through our lives. And
I was watching a video about like when like you see people in
the
the
Catholic
Catholic
Church
Church
with
with
that
that little thing, and they have smoke coming out, and they say, oh, that's righteous, and but if somebody else burns, like, I don't know, sage, Palo Santo, whatever they burn, they say, oh no, that's demonic. You know what I mean? Like, really and truly, so it's it's very, very, it's very interesting, and
everybody has their
their
own.
own faith. Everybody has their own walk. um you know my situation, for me, my situation, when I was being introduced to ancestors, all of these other pantheons, and all of these other deities, and seeing
That
that
they
they
are
are
actually
actually real, and that they are actually for real, and there's a lot in between, and what we want to say in between
heaven
heaven
and earth, or heaven and hell.
and all of that good stuff, so
There's a lot,
there's a lot to explore. Like, you could explore this stuff for, like, you could explore this stuff for generations.
you really and truly, like, you could really and truly explore this stuff
For
for
generations, and just keep learning and learning and implementing, and there's a lot of stuff that there's a I it's interesting. Like, I'm not gonna say I didn't learn anything in church. Like, I learned like historical and going to church. I feel like I've learned historical stuff. For person, I felt like I learned historical stuff, but going through like spiritual beginning, awakening, reimagining, reawakening, however you want to look at it, and like I said, seeing
ancestors and all of that other stuff. You know that um you know that this stuff is
real. Like
now. If
everything that I've been through, and if I went to the church, they'd be like, "Oh man, that sounds demonic. Let's pray or whatever." Or like, no, 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 don't do that, because these things have helped me to move forward and to thrive in life. I'm talking about like the supernatural stuff. You know what I mean? It's like my ancestors have been there with friends and family and all of that. They just disappeared. Like they have really and truly,
they've really.
really, been there. So
And for me, if certain things are presented,
presented to me, of course, I'm gonna try it. Like seriously, you know. Because it's like being a kid and having a child. That's one thing about on your being on your spiritual journey. It's like you have to have this childlike imagination and childlike wonder to get this stuff to really and potently and to truly work. Because
kids can see good and bad, and
who has a good heart and all of that good stuff. They really can. They can see through. They can see through.
through like people, and they can see like who's there.
And all of that good stuff. Like the pretend friends and you know what I mean. Like some are like little kids, like I don't know, whatever age to like
5 or 6.
when
When kids are kids, they're like pure of heart, and
they can just be
they can really
when kids are kids and they're
pure
pure
of heart, and they
can really and truly just be
themselves, and they can really and truly.
you know.
I was trying to get this little thing to work here. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, but
But that's the beautiful thing,
it's like that song
later in the midnight hour, God's gonna turn it around, but it's what do they call it?
in church. Oh, in church they call
Call it the midnight hour. On the other side, they'll say the witching hour. Like from 12 to I don't know 4 in the morning, when you're just up for when you're just up for whatever reason, and I don't know, maybe you have certain thoughts, or you're trying to write something, or you're trying to pray, and you know it's a great time to do like it's a great time to manifest and do work, like really like
serious work. It's just a great time to.
to touch or to tap into the spiritual. Very, very, very amazing time.
But it's just interesting. Like I don't know. It's like
People out here, some people just I don't know, and people are who they are. You gotta,
people are who they are.
and some people you just have to meet them where they are, and like some people, like if you tell people, hey, Bigfoot is real, yeah, I saw him in the woods, people are like, oh, that's not true, until like Bigfoot comes and knocks on their window and waves at them, and they're like, oh my God, I saw it, Bigfoot is real, oh my God, so, but all of these people
Telling stories
about things that they've seen out at sea or
in the ocean.
or and you hear stories of angels and so on and so forth. So what I'm talking about is really, like what honestly, like what I'm talking about is it's really nothing new. It's not, because people out here experience and talk about these things, and have they call it, I say supernatural, they say paranormal, some stuff you shouldn't go looking for, like people move into these old personally, I got my own activity. Like for real, like I'll say it. I got my own activity. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be everything that I bring, and whoever else in there. So they're just gonna have to move over. You got some company coming through. But
I guess I do this.
to let people know, like really and truly, I do this to let people know that they are not alone out here. If they're having thoughts and dreams, you have cognitions, I don't know, whatever it is you're going through, in a spiritual, supernatural way, you are not alone. Is there one person out here that's the big great guru and knows it all? No. If anybody tells you they do, they are lying. I don't care who they are. I don't care, like seriously. And I've been through some stuff. I really have. And I'm gonna continue to grow. I'm gonna continue to elevate and all of that good stuff. If somebody tells you like, oh, I'm the great guru of the spiritual world. No, they're not. Just because they got a bunch of books laid out somewhere, that's what and what. You know, a lot of us can read. Like I watch, I don't know, hours and hours of videos probably on this stuff. Ancient Egypt and all of this. I remember when I was doing tarot cards and all that. It's like, man, it's really and truly, it's really and truly nothing new on this. Now, we live in a world where it's, now we just live in a world where it's
It's just really and truly more about
everybody is on the social media kick. Everybody's on the social media thing. That's just what it is. Every people want to be seen for whatever reason. When I don't whatever. But, hey, it's what it is. It's how it works. It's what society is right now. And, a lot of people just want to. Some people want to be famous without any kind of contact or any kind of skill set. But that is what that is.
but we are talking about
The supernatural is very real.
those people who say
They've had like alien encounters and all of this stuff like that. And for me, I take that stuff serious. Now when I see like government stuff and they're like, the government is releasing files, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I'm like, where the, because I see videos of people saying like, pointing to the skies and seeing stuff coming out of the ocean, going into the ocean. I see people who are military experts, talking about all of this stuff, really and truly, you know. But do I feel like people are some people waking up? Yeah, some are, and some people. There's a lot of people out here.
there's a lot of people.
On here that are going to need help. They're going through a lot. Where a lot of us are just going through some stuff. A lot of stuff we're dealing with
Probably more.
than I don't care what generation you are, but
We're living in.
time of right now, and it feels like so much is coming in and happening all at one time.
Really and truly, it feels like all of this stuff is.
It's coming in and happening, and we just kind of like that Michael Jackson song. It's like in the middle, just like it really and truly feels like we are stuck in the middle of all of this.
So, and are there
Those people that are tapped in and they're doing the right thing, and trying to help people, of course.
of course there are. So, and then there are people who
Are just
in
using
chat GBT, and they're faking it. They really are. They're faking it. But if you call these people up
by name, which I don't really pay attention to any of that stuff.
that's everybody
They got a deck of cards and God this, and so I don't really pay attention to it,
But it's just a lot of people without
any kind of stuff that's just showing a lot of skin, really and
really,
truly.
so I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't be on here. Maybe
They should be doing, only, OF or whatever.
I am
I'm going to continue my journey. I'm going to try to help people out here the best I can and do,
just um.
I, I, I'll, what,
Let me go put my glasses on. It's like whatever. I thought I was seeing some. Anyway,
like whatever path you go down, for me, I'll say this, like, whatever path, or path that you're going down in the spirit, and believe me, it's going down. Like you're going to, like you're seeing and experiencing, like, once in a generation, once in a lifetime things. And these things are happening now. And it wasn't, it's not 3,000 and whatever. This stuff is happening now. There's gonna be a whole lot more stuff that you're gonna experience, that you're gonna see, or
like am I like
I'm not seeing that, because I've seen, I've seen some stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, am I seeing that? Like, for real. But
hey,
and I've had my battles with, like, mental, depression, and
all of that stuff.
I have to really fight those, like, for real, get that out of my system.
But like for real, that stuff. That's not fun. That's really and truly not fun. But yeah, so just
To say that, um,
a lot of those stuff.
a lot of the things that you hear, those old bedtime stories, a lot of stuff is true. It's a lot of the new normal that we go through. It's a lot of the new normal about what we go through out here. And
Like when you're dealing.
God isn't a genie that you just go, cherry pick the Bible for this and for that. Either if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. Like really, like really and truly, like that is a different kind of walk. It is very, very much so. It is not easy. So I can see people like, I'm not going to be with the religion and blah blah blah. And then there are people who are in it. They condemn everybody and everything, and it's just not supposed to be like that. It's really and truly.
Not
It's not all about. It's not just all about. It's not. You and your little world and your little things that you go through.
be big to you. While you're going.
Going through it, or during that moment of time, but if you are that religious and you are that holier than thou, then and if you are looking at people who really and truly need your help, maybe they need just prayer or whatever, or time or something to get them back on track, and so on and so forth. But people will thumb their noses. I think that's why a lot of people don't go to church anymore.
Not to say that they're not.
Believing that they just,
It's not going to church.
no, I get it. I really and truly, that path of righteousness is not easy, man.
Walking that path.
Staying, walking that path, staying on that word, knowing what you know, um, and truly, and truly wanting to, and really and truly wanting to go and share that, and share that with people, because I heard a pastor say, I never learned how to preach, but I've learned, the only thing I've truly learned is how to tell the truth, and that's, that's my word too. Like, I that's why I've always been slow to be like, oh hey, I'm gonna, because I just want people to know what the truth is, like, um,
I found
Like, ancestors are powerful, all that stuff is cool, but, just walking on that path of righteousness is
like that for to me that's just top tier. That,
just, that's what I've learned, that's what I got out of it. I don't push it on people. If you choose to go down that way, you might say, oh, well, it's chosen for you. Some people say we come down here and we have this destiny and we have to just figure it out, and, all so on and so forth. Cool. To believe in, you know,
ancestors.
all of that stuff. But I know our ancestors walked with us. They always, for me, I know, especially like when you open those doors, they're there. And for me,
It's always
it's always been love. It has always.
yeah.
So yeah, man, so it's always been love. But yeah, so it's just that, um,
It's like it's
just in the
sense
sense
of things. Maybe like
your gifts are just for you. Maybe you're not fitted to be like some, I don't know, traveling, whatever. Helping people with stuff. People that have passed on and all of that stuff like that. People say, oh, everybody's a psychic medium these days. Everybody, like I said, everybody's a psychic medium. Everybody has a deck of tarot cards. Like, ooh, that stuff don't impress me. It don't, because I've done that stuff. Like for real, I've had those names. I've had those monikers. I've done that. Been there and I've done that. That's like, to me, that ain't nothing. Like they said, there is nothing new under the sun. I feel like probably the most powerful of those people you probably would never see on social media. Seriously. They're not gonna be like, tap the screen, send me a gift, send me a flaming hope. I don't know what people want on social media. People, what do they call them? The pretty bums. People are always on here begging for money and stuff like that, and the rest of us are just, we go to work. Those of us that are doing that. But just to say, we'll get off that rant, but um, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be shifting and taking place. A lot of people that are going to be,
and that's the most
interesting thing,
yeah. So
that's the most interesting thing.
that with
Within this journey, you have to, give yourself. You got to give yourself grace. You do.
you have to you have
Have to give yourself grace.
like really and truly seriously. Tomorrow we're gonna
Talk about let's talk about not supernatural stuff, but
I kind of lost my train
there's some maybe over
here, but oh, we were tomorrow.
we're gonna talk about spiritual warfare and drawing the lines in the sand. And I saw somebody earlier. They were like, these kids are going back to school. You pray over your kids, and true, you need that.
These younger generations.
Need prayer probably more than anybody else. Through the stuff that they're going through, it is wild in these schools. And you're talking to somebody. I subbed in high school and elementary schools and all that stuff. So I've seen some stuff, like really and truly. Like I really and truly,
Like I really
really and truly, I've seen it. Yeah. So YT is where the trolls come out. They're funny though. But anyway, yeah, man. So nobody really have any questions or anything like that.
don't forget to support myself.
So, we're working on working on some stuff in the background. So just go to, www.solomanpower.com. by, we got, we got a lot of kids books and outfitting poetry and all of that good stuff. So we have some, we have some amazing things that are coming out. I love your support. Um,
I'll be seeing more of
this guy out here, just doing this thing and all of that, and in the forefront. And yeah, man. Which one is it? Yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty much all that I have for today. And well, all right, y'all. But I am out this piece. I know it has been a minute since you have seen me, but yeah, I'll be jumping back on here and all that good stuff. But thank y'all so much for joining. Enjoy your evening. And it's over there and signing out. All right, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace.